Hello and welcome everybody to the Six Pixels Under podcast. I am NS or Nerd Slayer, your host, and we have a lot of stuff to cover today. Nothing really super pressing. There is some weird news that just came out literally today that I want to talk about. But beside that, as you probably know about the podcast already, it's very informal. We're just here to chat, talk, debate, meme, and honestly, that's probably it. Maybe educate in both directions as well. But yeah, it's not too deep here. The Death of a Game series, I feel like, is more of the place that we have like the more analytical stuff. Not that we don't get analytical here, but as people know, I don't have like a script or I don't have like a plan per se. I just have a couple of articles I want to get to, and that gives you the ability to basically, ask whatever you want and make this more kind of conversational, which I think is kind of cool. And it's what really the truth is I stream for that reason. I stream to have more of a connection with the audience. Streaming doesn't make me money, really. Thank you to those who donate, by the way. But it doesn't really make me money, right? Like it's something that I purely do because like I feel it gives me the best chance to interface with my audience in a way that people don't feel is like pressing, negative, or too aggressive, or you know what I'm saying? Like, because like if I invite somebody to the Discord, I feel like even though it shouldn't, that comes with it this inherent like, oh, everybody's gonna, pile up on me kind of thing. And you know, probably that's obviously not true, but I could see how somebody would feel that way. So yeah. And today, the first thing I wanted to talk about is a doozy, I guess you could say. Sorry. Wait, where's my window capture? Um, there we go. Okay. So Amazon Game Studios, AGS, just announced today a new MOBA, a war MOBA called March of Giants. Give me your reactions. It's a 4 versus 4 MOBA. Trying to see what else information it gives us. Military themes? Okay, so it's a military themed MOBA. Isn't that isn't that kind of weird? A military themed MOBA and 4 versus 4? MOBAs are usually 3 versus 3 or 5 versus 5. So what the it says you play as a giant. Here's some more screenshots. I mean, the art looks okay. Well, that's kind of like a different art style. This is like Western Ghibli style or something, and this is like hard gothic, you know, or some shit like soft gothic. The style, yeah, the style is very confusing to me. Again, that doesn't mean that it doesn't work or it shouldn't work. You can still make that stuff kind of work. Hey, Rintastic. Thanks for stopping by at least, even if you have to go for your raid. Um, Look, the art is interesting. Let me put it that way. But interesting art doesn't always translate to a good multiplayer game. And the reason for that is because with art styles, how they work with a multiplayer online game or, a live service game is that they have to make money through transactions because usually these games are free. So that's going to come in the form of skins, boosters, um, skins for many different things. I should actually state, because it's oversimplification to just say skins, but you see what I'm saying? And so having an interesting art style could be good there, could make people want to buy skins, but it could also end up making everyone feel or look weird and not liking how their characters look. Tons of online games make that mistake all the time. But yeah, I don't know. People might say, wow, you shouldn't be so negative about this. Guys, you're talking to somebody who's tested every Amazon Game Studios game in early testing. And none of them have ever really felt that ready. Like, I mean, even as ideas. And that's a problem. It's like when you play a game in early testing, what you should be getting from it is that, like, it has a concept, it has a gameplay loop, and it pulls it off at least, like, you know, semi. Because maybe parts are missing. But if it doesn't even have, like, a semblance of, like, a gameplay loop that can just, like, be repeated, I don't think it's going to last, right? And that's been the case for, you know, pretty much every Amazon Game Studios game. Apparently, this is actually coming from a different studios, though, than the Irvine studio, so there is a little bit of, like, leeway to be offered there. Apparently, it says here that this is actually in Montreal, Canada. And I think, yeah, that could at least offer some level of, like, you know, suspension and disbelief of, like, maybe something could work out. But I also want to state that, like, I think the problem with Amazon Game Studios is just whoever's in charge of the studios in general. Seems to be a bunch of people like Phil Hartman or whoever, if he's still the CEO or CEO, who just, like, they're talking heads, they're figureheads. Like, we haven't seen really anything get done, and it's just crazy to have that much money and act so absolutely stupid about what can you do. And I think, like, let me just talk about that for a second, because we always end up here. What's up, Des? That a big problem in the online gaming market, and, you know, this obviously, when I make prescriptions to online gaming, usually it doubly applies to MMOs or online RPGs, so my apologies, but the thing about online gaming is that you do have to have some level of goodwill and belief from your community. Like, there's only so many times you can create a new studio name, like Wildcard does with Ark Survival, and the multiple other games they had, before people start figuring out, okay, that's what you're doing. You have to actually build some level of, like, trust in your game and your products. And Amazon Game Studios just hasn't done that. They gave up on a game before it ever even came out. They gave up on a game when it came out, relaunched it, then gave up on it again. New World has been essentially relaunched as, like, a console game for some reason, for whatever reason. And then now, obviously, Lost Ark has been floundering for some time. But, of course, now we have more news about potentially more Amazon Game Studios projects, and it's like, you're trying to make a MOBA in 2025. Now, I don't like to make that just, like, super boring prescriptive statement that, like, suddenly there can't be success, but, like, the point is actually, like, there could be. But is Amazon Game Studios the one to do it, and do they have enough time and faith in their games to actually get there? Because a common misconception about games that become titans, and I see this all the time, it kind of drives me crazy if I'm being honest, is that people will have this kind of, like, selective memory that, oh, these titans were just always titans. They were just overnight titans. Like, I'll give you two examples. Oh, Dota? Dude, Dota's just been huge. It's always big. It's like, guys, I was playing Dota when it was a Warcraft 3 mod. Like, Dota used to be a mod, right? Defense of the Ancients. And then it turned into a game that Valve ended up snatching the creator for, Ice Frog, or one of the big creators, and then essentially, creating a sequel with the actual IP. So they kind of, like, finessed Blizzard. It's a big story I talk about in the Heroes of the Storm video. But yeah, I guess just the thing with MOBAs is that I like them a lot. And I think that there's room for variety in them. But I think you have to approach it like Pokemon Unite, where it's obviously, like, a more pared down version utilizing Pokemon. I think that works because they already have a massive audience, and there's already a lot of like crossover for people wanting to play that. But going back to my Titan thing, kind of the point that I'm making is that like the same applies to League of Legends. League of Legends was a spin-off of Dota because they were major fans and they wanted to create their own kind of game, and they did. And at first the tests were very, very, very limited. I know, I was there. They were weekend only tests. Most people don't know this about League of Legends. And that like weekend only testing, actually what it did is it created such a active player base whenever the servers would go live, and we ended up being so like passionate about testing the game and playing the game. So the early audience for League of Legends, we just have to be honest, was like super fans and stuff like that. And then obviously League grew over time, became massive, and now it hasn't been a small fish for a long time. But the point is that no MOBA started by just being big and then running a lead. None of them did that. That's not to say that you couldn't do it, but I think it requires different mechanisms. Ones that I'm not even sure about, you know? Because I don't have all the answers, obviously. I just have my, as a detective would say, my precollections. But anyway, speaking of Amazon Game Studios, we might as well go into it. Recently I covered Lost Ark. And, let's talk about Lost Ark a little bit. Obviously, I did a lot in my video talking about it, but I mean, like, so go check it out, the Death of a Game on Lost Ark. But, I think Lost Ark is one of the coolest titles that I've, like, ever played and ever seen. And that's what's funny, obviously, is most of the time you have, extremely, you know, feverish, like, fanboys of a game. The first thing that they want to discredit or attack is usually you not liking something. But as, you know, just about anybody, especially even just close friends of mine, know about me, my first online game was Diablo, actually. I played Diablo 1 online for the first time. That was like the first online game experience. Then it was StarCraft, then it was Habba Hotel, then it was Dark Eden. Dark Eden happens to be a Diablo-like that also, in many ways, is kind of an MMO, so it was essentially Lost Ark before Lost Ark was Lost Ark, which is what I said in the video. So I've been a fan of this game and this kind of game and genre for like 20 years, as I'm sure many people here have with Diablo at least as well. And so Lost Ark for me is right up my alleyway. Now the problem is I immediately could realize that based on how the game was designed, it was just going to be constantly carrot on the stick. Because that was just the easiest way to make money from it. And there might be an argument there that, hey, okay, so let's talk about monetization. Because I think people struggle with that sometimes. Fanboys, haters, in-betweens. Thanks, one toxic or not. Until yes, I'll get back to that in a second. And also you said Dora, which is funny as fuck. But anyway, so let's talk about like the concept of monetization. I talk about this a lot, but people don't really like theory, which is why you don't hear me talk about that stuff too much. But there's about 3 or 4 different types of business plans that you have with like online gaming, right? You have buy to play, which is not super common, but exists a lot in Asia. Where it's like you buy a game, you don't play any, or you don't pay any subscription fees. These days there's cash shops in those games, but before there usually wasn't, and they were very minimal, like Guild Wars 1. And then you have games that are subscription based. These games usually require you to buy them as well, but sometimes don't, and just require you to pay a sub and you get everything kind of unlocked. Then there's also games that are free to play. These games, of course, are free to play. But free to play is an oxymoron. And what's an oxymoron? It's essentially like a collection of words or a word that doesn't mean what it says. So free to play sounds like the game's free. But free to play means that you can play it for free. It doesn't mean that you have to, how do I say this? Never spend money on the game, or that they would never want you to spend money on the game. Because the whole purpose of a game and anything that's sold for money, right? Even a free-to-play game, is to make money. So they have to make money, right? So the concept is that you're playing a game for free, but the designers of the game, who are also most of the time, if not every single time, involved with the monetization. Yeah, buy into it, exactly. But the designers are the same people tweaking the knobs for monetization. So sometimes you might think to yourself, why does the leveling in Final Fantasy XIV suck, but nobody seems to care that much about it? It's because they make money knob turning from boosts. People buy character boosts in that game. And I hear a lot of people buying it. My guess is that game probably has more character boost bought than any other game besides WoW. Like, I just can't imagine any other game having more boosts than that game. But, you know, that's a different discussion about boosts and concept of pay to win. Now, going back to free to play, how would a free to play game make money? Usually, cosmetics is the first thing. Like the League of Legends model is actually fairly simple. Everything is free eventually, except the skins. So you can't buy any of the skins for free. Now, technically, you can get skins for free through the chest system and through the different like battle pass stuff. But you see what I'm saying? In that game, the power exchange doesn't exist. Except if if you buy a character, that's sort of like a power exchange, but you can earn characters, and you can earn them fairly easy, especially these days. So using like a more like online RPG MMO example, like let's look at like old school RuneScape. How does that game make money? Well, it makes money from a lot of different ways. It has a subscription for starters, right? Which helps, but it also has stuff that services that you can pay for, right? And these services allow you to, you know, change your name and, I'm sure people here know more of the services. I don't think old school RuneScape has server transfers, so they don't make money through that way. But you know what I'm saying? Like, there's little like bits and pieces where old school RuneScape makes money, but they don't have like this big cash shop. At least not compared to RS3. And then you start to move into kind of like the strictly free-to-play games that don't really have subscriptions. Those games have even more aggressive monetization. And so a game like Lost Ark would basically be that kind of game. You're not really paying for a sub in Lost Ark, and you're not getting any extra content access from buying any extra packs. So for people who play the game, it creates this illusion, and maybe people just watching as well, but like for people who are ignorant, or sadly they are the kind of person who would end up being the person who is most beneficial to be ignorant, a customer, basically, have this perception that, oh, but this game's just free. What do you mean it costs money? What do you mean it's pay to win? You don't have to pay for anything. And technically speaking, you don't have to. Like, nobody's putting a gun to your head and saying you have to buy this thing. But that's the genius of it. So pointing that out just means that you're just a mark, as they say in wrestling or WWE. You're kind of just getting got. Because the whole point is that, well, no, duh. They can't put a price tag or put a name tag on there that says exactly what they're going to do to you. Otherwise, that wouldn't be the kind of business that would work for that type of game. So what do? They make it really hard to grind. They give you a crap ton of item level requirements in order for you to get to a certain place. That makes it to where the player who's playing for free can get there, but they might have to put 5, 6, 7, 8, 900 hours into the game. I'll give you a funny example of this. I had somebody post on the Lost Ark video, pay to win is not really a thing, and I have 10k hours. It's like, mate, if you have 10k hours, well, no fucking duh, pay to win doesn't matter to you. You probably did and grinded everything possible in the game without ever having to spend money. Because why would you have to if you're putting in 10,000 hours? But that's the whole point, is the system actually isn't necessarily looking for those 10,000 hour grinders. It's looking for the 1,000 hour whales, 100 hour whales, 50 hour whales. You see what I'm saying? Because whales, and this has been proven in multiple Korean style games especially, like Arcade and Lost Ark, the top 10% of the player base makes the game more money than the rest of the 80, 90% of the player base, right? Like the top 10 to 20% makes more than everybody else in the game. So that's why a couple of things start to happen when you start to realize that things are the way that they are. So for example, with Lost Ark, because the game is literally designed to be a gear treadmill item power level type game, as the population decreases in that game, it actually gets worse. It becomes harder to grind for those things. Then it actually becomes more imperative that you spend money on those types of things. So you have this like feeding process that as a free-to-play game gets smaller and smaller, it starts to gouge you even more. Which seems like it would be the opposite. But that's because it has to do that now in order to survive. So then with, a free-to-play game like Lost Ark, what players feel who want to just progress at the same rate as everybody else is that the game is either untenable, they can't keep up with it, or they have to just spend a bunch of money. And some people are okay with either of those things. So ask yourself, the remaining player base in Lost Ark would have to be the player base that's okay with either pay-to-win stuff or the fact that you have to endlessly grind for things. So that's why sometimes it's important to realize, even just psychologically, when you talk about certain things, especially in postmortems and in documentaries and analytical pieces, taking the direct word of the mouth, from the horse's mouth, aka like the starved, addicted Lost Ark player, it's helpful in some instances because they have like photographic memories most of the time. I'm talking about this as somebody who gets hundreds of messages about different games before I cover them and after I cover them. So I have tons of, thousands of examples, but you'll get really like detailed posts. The problem is it's almost 80% irrelevant things. And when I say stuff like that, it really hurts Lost Ark players in this example, their feelings, or maybe like another game, like the player base's feelings. But here's the thing. Why something failed isn't directly related to why the loyal fan base doesn't like parts of the game. Those things aren't one-to-one. Why would they be? Think about it. If a player quits at 1, 2, 3, 10, 5, 50 hours, why would their issues be the same as somebody who has 1,000 hours, or 5,000 hours, or 7,000 hours? It wouldn't make any sense. Their issues would be far, far different. The first player's issues would be just the simple things that immediately impact them. These are important. That's why when people hand wave impressions, I might be critical of the fact that reviews aren't very good and disguised as impressions, but impressions are super important. It gives you your first kind of idea of like what's going on. So if the player base, as you can read in my comment section, is constantly saying, this game feels like it's impossible to keep up with, as they're going through the experience, trying to logic them about how things are different now, a couple years later, after everybody's left the game, it's kind of autistic. And that's coming from an autistic person, because it's like essentially not even realizing that you're arguing from a perspective that doesn't even apply anymore. You're arguing amongst your own types of hardcore players who are largely okay with these things and just want to see new things come out. So for them, seeing a new raid or a new zone is celebratable. Because why wouldn't it be celebratable? Because it's new content. It's more content for them to experience, right? But at the same time, for the other players who already quit at 5, 10, 50, 20, 1,000 hours, those players still didn't get their issues fixed. So their concerns actually never got answered because new content came out. Because the new content came out, it didn't actually address those things. And so that's kind of like, you see like this divide between the regular player, aka the general player base, especially in this case. This is like the 97% of the player base. And then like the 3% that are left over. That 3% looks at the 97% like, you guys are crazy. And I can relate to that. As a Darkfall player, Ultima player, Galaxies player, I was always the one on the other side of the fence in those games arguing against things. That's kind of why I created this channel and series, was like, I got tired of being misled by games, feeling like they were still the level of aliveness, right? And what I realized is that aliveness is not just directly dictated to how many players are playing a game. And that's why scale is always more important. And there are games you can see this very clearly with, like, ironically, Lost Ark. You have a game that lost like 97% of its population in only, I think, 2 years. It lost, I think, 40% just after a couple of months. Like, for reference, that's like SWTOR level failure. You guys remember Star Wars The Old Republic? That was like a massive, expensive game as well. Even more expensive than Lost Ark. I think that game was like 200 million or whatever. Lost Ark was like 90 million. SWTOR had the same population drop. The problem is that it wasn't set up for being a free-to-play game. It was a subscription game that had to then like change and go through this process. And don't get me wrong, it ended up like making money compared to what it would have had it stayed like a subscription-based game. But compared to Lost Ark, it didn't make nearly as much money, just based on how the games were designed. And I think that like Westerner developers are smart. They know that. That's why it was also kind of weird. And there's a couple different like paths we'll go during this stream to talk about the video. But like, it was weird to see so much defense forces being ran for Amazon Game Studios. Even weirder coming from the fact that it was coming from fans of the game. And you might say, yeah, but that makes sense because it's like a one-to... Guys, Amazon Game Studios didn't make Lost Ark. Smilegate did. They're just running it. They're running it in the West. They're like the maintenance, person. Why are they getting defended? Think about that. Like, in what way would they be defendable? Because what they're doing is like a service, I guess? Like, I'm supposed to pat them on the back? They're running a business. They're getting tons of money for it. And they use the same type of business plan that was popular in Korea, despite Korean Invin reports, as I talk about in my video, literally telling people, hey, Amazon Game Studios, don't ruin this game with the monetization. This was said on the Reddit, by the way, the Lost Ark Reddit. And they did anyway. But I'm still seeing like defenses for like Amazon Game Studios. It's like, why are you defending them? This is like when people were defending Tryon Worlds. Until I feel like, hopefully, in some ways, with my Arcade video, showed people that Tryon Worlds was always part of the problem. They weren't like inexcusable. This idea that like publishers with Korean games that give it to Western games, and the Western games are just like, or the Western developers are just like, it's out of my hands, there's nothing I can do, is just full of shit. It's not true. And if it is, then they're willingly accepting that deal, knowing they can't do anything about it. You see what I'm saying? And that's not good either. Addicted to science, could you use like an example? Because like one thing that's been really common on the internet these days, this didn't used to be common back when forums were a thing, because if you did this, people would just quote you and say like, hey, what are you talking about? And then people wouldn't be able to spurg out and say, see, you can't take criticism, because you're like asking them to explain what they mean. Like, that's the current state of the internet, is like people are so sensitive in their mind. It's like, if someone asks me, what does something mean? Or what is my argument? They're attacking me. Their heart starts fluttering. It's like, relax, little buddy. We're just having a conversation. You can yell at me even if you want, as people on stream or in Discord can even attest to. Because the funniest thing I've found is that the people who are willing to have these sorts of discourses, even in hostile fashions, are almost always resolvable. Because it's not that serious. We're talking about video games. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe if this was like fucking Israel versus Palestine or some shit, like a 100-year-old plus fucking conflict, maybe it would be difficult. But we're talking about video games. So it's like, we could just talk about certain mechanisms, and if you feel like my mechanisms aren't important to you, that's totally fine. That's kind of what the series is for, really, is to outline why a particular game failed. So if you don't think that it failed, even when the evidence pushes towards that, then that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Ah, okay, great. I'm glad somebody asked the question about maintenance mode, so I can educate. So remember how I said we can educate in both directions? All right, so let's be clear. I have, been playing these games for a long time, right? Long time. About like 21 years. And I started testing online RPGs before I was even of age. Probably when I was like 14 or something like that. I think the first couple of ones I tested were like Global Agenda, which became one of my favorites. Shadowbane. Not Shadowbane, fuck. Damn it. I covered it. It's like an Xbox shooter. Maybe it is Shadowbane. No, it's not Shadowbane. Shadowbane's the MMORPG. What's that damn third person you play as like an elf or like an orc? I'm for some reason forgetting that game, but I tested that one as well. Those were like my early testing experiences. And like, to be honest, and most people laugh at this nowadays, but this is true. I'm being 100% true. The reason that I used to get involved in testing was because I couldn't afford to play games. So I would just want a way to be able to like afford to play the game. So I would just be like, hey, let me test the game, yeah, sure enough, it worked. But so I can educate people on terms because I've been around the block and I've read pretty much every material of note in this field. So I guess you could say that I'm well read, even though there's like 10 books. It's not hard to read 10 books. Well, I guess maybe if you can't read or something, but anyway. So maintenance mode. What does maintenance mode mean? Maintenance mode, ironically, is actually very simple. It means that you continue to essentially apply maintenance to a project, right? Now, I've worked in construction before. I've been working on YouTube for a couple of years now. But so like essentially, as you think about it, maintenance mode is it's not about my definition. This is the definition. Like, this is what the concept of maintenance mode was meant to mean. And any developer in chat or any other developers that follow me, there's a lot, they can feel free to chime in or tell me that I'm wrong. But maintenance mode is not, it's an operations perspective. It's not the player base is like, okay, this is mode maintenance. It's like, that's something that actually came later on where players like me started to actually ask questions like, is this game in maintenance mode? Because from an operational standpoint, maintenance mode means something. So as somebody who worked in construction for 7 years and worked for a Fortune 500 company and insulation, and also worked on pretty much every major hospital and major hotel project in like Houston and Austin area. In my experience in construction, what you find is that when something moves to maintenance mode, right, like a point or reference of maintenance, that doesn't mean that new projects don't exist. So I'll give you an example. I might be running maintenance on a hospital, but if suddenly a hospital like literally adds a whole new Alkek section, right? Or a bridgeway, or like whatever else type of like facility that needs to be like addressed, I have to do that. If I'm on contract and that's like my hospital, I need to do that project too. So that's called new content, right? So that would be essentially like new content. The thing about the Lost Ark thing that's strange to me is that Korea is the one that makes the content. And there's always been a gap between whatever those updates are. that gap went from being only a couple of months, which was arguably bad, to now like almost half a year. So meaning that you're essentially playing old content, but celebrating it like it's brand new. It's something strange whenever people become fans of like Korean games that get ported to the West, think that people like me are supposed to celebrate that. It's like, is it technically new content? Yeah, it is, which is why I mentioned that in the video. Here's a direct quote from my script. More content would trickle out by the spring of 2024. Right? And then it continues in 2025. Lost Ark wasn't done kicking yet and would introduce more content. But showing that new content at this point wasn't enough to bring in the big dollars, when there was clearly an issue of hemorrhaging the player base in the first place. So I have no idea what Addicted to Science like LARPing about in chat, reading home pages. It says there's new content here in the script directly, and it continues on to say there's more new content being offered. The thing is I just didn't call out the content specifically because it's irrelevant. And I'm sorry that that hurts your feelings, that the rest of the player base and world has seemingly moved on from a game that you potentially like. But I think that's just called, it's time to grow up. Like, we all have this experience as online gaming nerds, trust me. My experience with Galaxies. I used to sit there till I was blue in the face in World of Warcraft fucking rooms and tell people my game's better than yours. And they used to sit there and say, like, don't like 10,000 fucking 25,000 people play your dumb game? And I'd be like, yeah. Did I still feel strongly about it? Yes. Did I think that that game had mistakes that led to it having bad population? Yes. But was WoW a more successful game monetarily, commercially? I mean, fucking obviously. What the fuck? Like, wasn't even close, right? Like, so like that's actually what made me fall in love with the idea of diagnosing if a game was dead or dying or not. Was because I kept getting my own heart broke, which is why this experience is always kind of funny and cathartic for me whenever I see the game's not dead because a new update just came out. It's like, brother, the 3% that's left playing the game might really enjoy it. But I'll give you an example of when people were doing this to me a lot too. And then suddenly I haven't heard about them. So New World was a game people said, you're way too early on. How can you possibly say the game's dead yet? You don't know shit. You're a noob, you know, whatever else. As of playing just an hour ago, we have 10,000 players. Like, that's like, what, 1% of the audience or something like that? Like, less than 2%? That's a massive failure. Like, because you're not, as an online game, you're not supposed to lose massive percentages of your audience within the first year. You're not supposed to. That's not the goal. And that's why it's funny, the defense forces for Lost Ark, I literally heard people saying stuff like, nobody thought they were going to keep their 1 million players. And I'm just like thinking, imagine if you're Smilegate and you're just like reading this shit. You're like, why would we spend $90 million on a game that we didn't want to like do really well and we didn't expect to do better than it did? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that that's the other part of the problem is, like, I'm thinking about this from a business perspective, and that's usually where people's feelings get hurt the most. Look, I know business is boring to most people. It's boring to me, and I fucking was in business school. But that being, and I went to business workshops, and I still think business is boring most of the time. I don't talk about it to other people. But when we cover these things, we have to talk about it, right? How much money is being made, how much money was made, percentages of, like, how much something was lost, versus how much something can be gained now because there's not enough players there. You get what I'm saying? So, like, my channel is in maintenance mode by definition. Gotcha. That was a good argument. So you went from, like, there's tons of inaccuracies to, now I'm gonna, no, you're a maintenance mode. Fuck, you owned me, bro. God damn it. Damn it, he boomed me. Does anyone actually have the video footage of him saying that, by the way? Or is that just like a meme that people always talk about?
Al Horford, and particularly Jason Tatum. Can you put that into words, and was anything said between you guys?
There was a lot said, but more importantly, it's just the mutual respect and the competition. You know, me and Al has, you know, we've had a lot of battles in the postseason and, you know, been on a lot of all-star teams together. And then with...
Like, this isn't it. Okay, so apparently where this comes from, for reference, I gotta explain the meme, which I hate doing because it ruins the meme, but basically when LeBron James, like, he had like a bad game or like a bad play against somebody, and they were like asking him about it on the phone in like an interview, and he goes, he's in like the locker room, he goes, he boomed me. He boomed me. It's just like, he's so PG that he couldn't even say like a cuss word, so he's just like, he boomed me. That was funny as fuck. Hey, Real Elvin, are you the guy that contacted me about being like a former animator or something like that? Sorry, I get a lot of messages and I have literal CTE from martial arts and playing American football, but I also have a bad memory on top of it. Yeah, no, patience is real. But I typically find that, like, I don't really blame people for a couple of weird exchanges, like, online, on Twitch or in, like, chat rooms, because this is kind of like a weird medium. You know what I mean? And I think that that's where I think the internet has gotten the most soft. I know that gets overplayed. The internet's soft these days. But what I mean by it is, like, if I just, like, respond to somebody, oh, you have so much misinformation, and I'm just like, what is it? I will literally get responses that don't even make sense, but they'll say, see, he can't even take criticism. And it's like, wait, because I asked what it was? Think about how level, like, what level of sensitive you would have to be in order to feel that that would be an attack on somebody. Is them asking for clarification. It's like, if you care so much, why wouldn't you just want to engage with somebody? It's just strange. Yeah, I agree, Mr. Zero Sins, about AGS not helping things. I mean, they literally... Did you guys know this? I fucked up and I didn't cover Gold River in the video, so let me admit that, boys. I didn't want to, like, fap about him like Yoshi P style, even though people kind of treat him that way. But Gold River, the director on Lost Ark but left the game, is, like, a big part of the puzzle because he's essentially like the mouthpiece for Korea. And while that doesn't really help the story that much, it helps the story in the sense of the Western approach, which is what we cover largely on the channel. We try to cover like Western or Eastern aspects, but most of us are Westerners. We want to cover it from the Westerner perspective, obviously. But what I'm saying is that Gold River, he actually reprimanded Amazon Game Studios. This was caught on stream. Let me see if I can find it for you guys.
So because of the tier 3 that will be included with the Legion raid and taking a bit of time with the localization of the content, it yielded some more time than expected.
그런데 이 아마존 게임스가 이거를 그렇게 공지를 안 하더라고요.
But it seems like when Amazon Games made that announcement, they didn't include any of these details in their announcement. So
그래서 좀 답답해가지고 제가 왜냐면 아니 로컬라이징 하는데 막 시간도 많이 쓰고 굉장히 좀 열심히 하셨거든요. 그래놓고선 공지를 안 해가지고 막 욕을 먹더라고요. 그래서
Koreans are not super confrontational, by the way. So the fact that he is doing this means that this shit was bothering him.
아니 이거 왜 공지를 좀 제대로 전달을 했으면 좋았을 텐데 하는 좀 그런 아쉬움이 있었어요.
And because of that, it seemed like Amazon Games did all the work to make this happen, but yet didn't, reveal any of these details behind the delay. So
like the fact that tier 4 was the reason for the delay. So you see, the issue was that, like, I wish I would have covered Gold River for this reason. This was like an important part of the puzzle for sure that I wanted to talk more about, because it actually makes Amazon Game Studios look even worse. But that's why if you see people holding water for them in the comments, you just know they're fanboys. Because again, even if you like Lost Ark, why would you be defending the Westerner, like, port developer? Like, what the fuck? Like, there's literally Invin posts, for people that don't know, invin.co.kr, a very famous forum slash website for Korean discussions about all types of things, but video games especially. There was a post there. It was a huge post where people were literally like saying, we're begging you guys, Westerners, don't let Amazon take the same stuff from the KR version and not change things even when we hate it in Korea. This is covered in the video, right? And they still did it anyway. And that's why it's like, I get you like the game. I get your happy content still coming out. Don't Stockholm Syndrome. Come on, brothers. What are we doing? Hey, what's up, Elron Storm? I appreciate it, by the way. Asking for examples is the same as admitting you don't have an answer. Yeah, like, it's like, Madness, that's such a good point. It's like being asked a question, you don't know the question is, like, what's pertaining to. And then if you say that, it's essentially admitting you don't know the answer to the question, you don't know what it means. Like, it's like, you're like, so what is, like, the misinformation? Oh, you said this was, like, the last raid or whatever. And it's like, brothers, I can admit sometimes languages are different. And sometimes that can lead to differences in how we express things, just like I fuck up my words sometimes because I'm trying to speak in Spanish more. But it says, like, you see the green part is Legion. I made a distinction throughout the video about Guardian raids and Legion raids. Reason being, I think Legion raids are the fucking shit, and they're so fucking cool. But they mean actually is the last Legion raid. And I was getting attacked in the comments because they read it as Last Legion. It says Last Theamine, or it says the Theamine Legion raid, then it says Final Raid. Look, I will admit that's confusing. I'll admit that's confusing. But here's the problem. I then continue to talk about more content being released to the game, like I said. So you can say that I wasn't clear, that I'm specifically only talking about Legion raids, but if you keep reading, the context clues point to that's what I was talking about. But they more importantly point to the fact that it doesn't matter, because the game didn't do any better after the Theamine Legion raid anyway. So what difference does it make? And that's the part that hurts people's feelings who love the game. It's like, they're like, yeah, but I love this raid. Or yeah, but there's a new raid that came out. Or yeah, but KR has 2 more raids cooking. Look, guys, in 2025, you're never going to get me excited about raids that are 6 months late. Like, I'm going to make a PSA. And to be clear, I'm in contact with NCSoft. I'm in contact with Nexon. I know tons of Korean developers. And I know Korean gamers and Japanese gamers. This might get me some hate from them, but I'm just going to say it because I'm also a Westerner arguing from our perspective for games for us as well. Which is that, look, we don't think that that's fucking cool anymore. Global release or fucking bust. If you guys want to stop being treated like second-rate MMO like citizens, you can't keep accepting 6, 8 month, 9 month, 10-month delay on contents. You can't. You're part of the problem. I know you're happy to get new content. Again, I keep saying that because I understand what that's like. I've been there. But you're part of the problem when you support these games that have 6, 8, 10-month delays on content. I'm not celebrating that in 2025. And raise your hand if you're with me. Because I've been asking about global releases since Ion got a global release. Ion got a fucking global release. You guys know how old Ion is? Ion came out in 2008. Don't give Korea fucking leeway. They can do global releases. They can drop content subsequently in parallel. Even just 1-2 month differences. But people eating these 6, 8, 9 month, 10 months up like candy, and I'm just like, brothers, you're part of the problem. Like, you're why Korea doesn't take the West seriously. Because they can sell you 8-month expired meat, and you're still eating that shit up. Like, this is good. It's like, no, it's not. This was good 8 months ago. It's not good right now. And you might say, yeah, but what's the solution? The solution is not just like being angry about it. It's telling developers. It's boycotting. It's saying, I don't want to play these Korean games that drop content a year later. Lost Ark came out like fucking 3 years after it was playable in Korea, guys. Is that excusable? Why is there no comments in the comment section talking about that, but instead defending the game? And I know there's tons of other great comments. I'm not trying to be like, oh my god, woe is me. But I'm just saying, like, why is there not comments talking about the content gap? The launch gap? Oh shit, is that what you were talking about, Magister? Could you break it down again here? Spark Notes? Because yeah, that's my issue. It's just like, people eat this shit up. And they like will defend Amazon Game Studios. It's like, guys, Ion was 2008. They global released. Do you know how fucking awesome that was? It literally felt like the world was playing the same virtual world for like the fucking first time. Like, and it sounds like I'm exaggerating, but for people who were there, they know that Ion experience, especially in the early days, was great. It was fun as fuck. I loved my experience playing Ion. It was a gorgeous game. It broke my PC, basically. And the world PvP was surprisingly good. But I talked about this in the Ion video, which was almost like a hate/love letter, because I hate and love the game. I hate how pay to win it became and how grindable it became. But I love the flying in the game. I actually loved how the game... I totally agree, Naz. It did feel like a next-gen game. You hit the nail on the head. Ion was like, again, global release. We were playing at the same time around the world. Like, it was just I remember watching videos of like PvP in Korean and Russian and Chinese, you'd name it, whatever languages. I was seeing PvP in all kinds of languages. And now we have games like dropping in 2025 and 6 and 7 and even on, and people still accept this like, hey, it's 4 years later, dropping in the East, dropping from the East to the West kind of shit. It's just like Blade and Soul, you can really go down the list. There's so many examples. I liked the PvP in Ion. My issue with it was that, yes, it was the first game using the CryEngine. It also, as far as I understand, what's that other game that used the CryEngine? I'm forgetting. ArcAge. So yeah, like ArcAge, Ion, two of the best looking, biggest games ever were made on CryEngine. Here's the funny thing. The CryEngine was then turned into a couple other engines. One of those engines actually ended up being New World's engine. Lumberyard. It was like a Crytek CryEngine hybrid thing that got turned into something else. They spent the majority of their time working on that game directly from developers' mouths in front of my face. Working on the engine in that game. Not working on the game. Yeah, BNS was that I'm not trying to pretend that if it came faster, it would have been a bigger hit in the East, or sorry, in the West. But I do think that it was a dropped ball still. Yeah, Naz, and to explain what I mean about ArcAge, like with Tryon, is back in the day, you probably remember this, everyone used to always say, it's XO Games. XO Games is the boogeyman. XO Games is Korean. XO Games is Asian. So that therefore they love money. Like, that's literally what the arguments would become. Until I got sources that worked at Tryon and heard direct testimonies from developers at XL Games where they said, we weren't in charge of monetization. They could have changed monetization. We didn't tell them to add buyable raid gear on the shop. It was Tryon. All that stuff was Tryon. And ArcAge and Rift, you name it. Like, it just sucks that the Western developers that we kind of had, that had such good games, were such money-hungry corpo-style companies. So yeah, that kind of sucks. But yeah, and then the last thing I'll talk about with the Lost Ark video is just there's a lot of mistakes in it, but not the inaccuracies of the content drops, but just mistakes I made when I was editing it, to be honest. Like, there's one moment that things get blurred, a couple of the notes are wrong, like 5 of them are like wrong. Excuse me, the timing on the soundtrack's wrong for Detective Conan. The timing on the end screen is wrong. And the reason for some of this, if you're wondering, is I haven't edited in literally like 5 years. So I had to like learn how to edit again. Yeah, editing is obviously like a muscle. You got to work it out to get it stronger. So I'm only going to get better. On top of that, I had to teach myself Adobe After Effects so I could make sure to keep including some of the transitions for you guys, which probably accounted for why I messed up on the notes. So anything else you guys notice about it or think that's missing or whatever else? Yeah, so let me talk about the music, Naz. That's a good one. Oh my god. Nerd Slayer addressing criticism. How dare he? This can't be real. No, but I was trying to go for like this, like, oh my god, it's so like, you know, manhwa, like, and wow. And then I forgot something. And you guys are gonna fucking laugh at me, but this is literally true, and you can look this up. If you are ADHD, you can process music at the same time that you process other sounds. Like, very easily, actually. Like, so I swear I was like 4 a.m. reading a comment, like half asleep on my bed, and I had a eureka moment. I was like, I'm an autistic ADHD person. No duh, people didn't notice, or people noticed the music more than me. So I will fix that, because although I was going for some type of effect, what I realized is that I don't want to say like a lot of people, because I don't know the percentages, but I'll say like a good percentage of people, that sounds very safe, like a detective should be sometimes, is good enough to be like, maybe I shouldn't do this. Or is enough people to say, maybe I shouldn't do this, you know? Yeah, watching with subs, obviously, it wouldn't be a problem for you. Or even just like I said, if you're like me, like you process both, like, because your brain's weird, neurotypical, but I think that most people would find issue with it. Or now I upgraded a good amount to most, but I'll stay at good amount. But I'll fix that. What else? I didn't get a lot of mentions about the clue, which makes me think that my pacing probably wasn't as great as I wanted it to be. But I honestly think part of the problem is that I spent too much time going into the details. That sounds funny because I'm getting critiqued by Lost Ark fans for not doing that enough. But the part, you know, again, the truth is that details don't always make the entire story. And that sounds strange, but I'll give you an example. What matters more to 97% of players? A new raid that was added, or the fact that the game was put on a gear treadmill where it forced people to spend money if they wanted to stay competitive? If not, they had to play it like a full-time job. Well, obviously not. It sounds like I'm asking a leading question, but that's just because that's literally what 97% of the audience would say, you know, especially since they left for reasons that are probably related to that, whereas the other 3% obviously wouldn't argue about that, because why would they, right? I gave you a good example. I, practice martial arts almost every single day. And sometimes I forget that it's not that normal. So I was out drinking with some friends this weekend. And one of my friends goes, "Oh, so like you just like fight people for fun, right?" And I was just like, and they said it like super loud. Like everyone like heard it. And I was just like, "Yeah, but can you not say that, please?" And then she was just like, "What do you mean? Isn't that what you do? Like practicing, like sparring?" And I was like, "Yeah, but like, I don't think that. Like, I'm not like, yeah, that's what I'm doing." But it's just funny, like, because whenever you're stuck in something, sometimes you just don't realize it's different, you know? Oh, another criticism of my video. This is actually a criticism that only a couple people levied, but I actually, whenever you're autistic, you just can't forget good criticism, which is why it always cracks me up when people try to act like that's like some attack on me, that I would attack bad criticism, as if I don't take in good criticism. Speaking of which, we have people in chat right now who criticize me all the time, and I ask them to on purpose because I want their opinions, because I know they have good opinions. And maybe that's what surprises people, is that maybe they think that I have the same reverence for them. But if I don't know you and don't have any, interactions with you, why would I value your opinion like everybody else's? Like, I know that's like the whole, like, everybody else's vote matters or whatever. And I get that, but like, we're not like a fucking parliament. So not everyone's voice matters here. It's just true. If you can't argue your perspective, or you're not likable, people probably won't care about what you have to say. Like, that's just true. So yeah, sometimes I'm not likable because I have to talk about things that aren't so cool. But it's not like I purposely don't want to be likable. I'm just an edgy boy at heart. Yeah, Madness. That's exactly how I took it. Was like, when she said it out loud, like rowdily, I know she was joking, but like I took it like, well, my other friends were laughing too, but like, I just mean like, I took it like, I'm not just like, what I do is like training. It's like playing a game. You know what I'm saying? I'm not just like fighting on the streets. Like, what? That's barbaric. Let me remember the criticism. So the criticism was, someone mentioned to me that they didn't like that I made too many Diablo references, even if it made sense in some instances, because they felt like Lost Ark was not much of a looter game. I actually think that that's a good point. Even with my Dark Eden comparisons, it's kind of like a Korean approach. Even more so. While there's similar aspects there, honestly, I kind of agree. That's a fair criticism. And that's one of those that I don't think I could fix with any commentary, but I could just say like, hey, good one. That was a good point. Yeah, and I think that I'm okay with comparing it, Naz, but I think where I'm agreeing with their point is that maybe I should have made a little bit more of a distinction. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, to be clear, guys, this isn't a looter. I never said that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if I'm making comparisons, but I never say it's not a looter, it does make you think it's a looter when it's not. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's up, Max Justice? I look white as a ghost right now, but I can't help that because my blinds fell down when I was installing my internet, which is what that is in the background, and I have to plaster my wall. And I've just been lazy to do it, so maybe I'll do it today, actually. Well, I say lazy, but I spent a lot of time writing, so... Writing makes you not want to sit in the house after a while. Yeah, Mr. Zero Sins. And maybe that's part of why it's... I don't know if that makes it worse or better. So maybe I didn't include it because I don't know how to, like, package the criticism around it, but... Yeah, I don't know. I do too, and that's why I'm trying not to be biased, because I personally prefer the more looter approach for such a style game. I mean, Dark Eden, to be clear to people, was a looter. Like, you sold heads for everything you killed to make money. It was the definition of a looter. And that was part of the part that I love the most, if I'm being honest. So, yeah, maybe that's also why Lost Ark didn't, like, hook me longer. Was that I didn't feel the same, like, running around and being like, hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it doesn't help, Max, that I train martial arts a lot, so, like, right now, usually my body's pretty hurt. So I'm like, I don't fucking feel like picking this shit up with myself, but I actually think, ironically, there's, like, a fucking fabrication / ceramics store near me, which probably has plaster. Or yo yeah, or yeah, whatever they call it in Spanish. I forgot the name. Maybe I'll just go take a look there. Elrond Storm. So this is actually a very good point. And I actually... sometimes when people make criticisms about the series, sometimes it's like a gut punch for me. Because it's good criticism, but it's almost like I can't do anything about it. Like, I'll give you an example. What in my previous videos, like my very first ones, I used to treat them like dissertations. I had tons of quotes and articles and graphs and so on and so forth. When I would read through my comment section, I never saw anybody ever talk about it. It was never a point of discussion. People were never like, wow, look at this chart. Wow, look at this graph. Wow, look at these percentages. While I think I could, like, if I had the ability to create the graphics for it myself, could just integrate it into the video, that would probably make it much better. You get what I'm saying? And that's probably the next stage I want to get to, because that's actually a kind of cool idea. And integrate them a little bit more so people can't ignore them as much. And only use a few of them for more emphasis. But I think you see kind of where I'm probably going now, which is that essentially I realized I had to dumb the series down. For example, Lost Ark fans getting mad about the raid, specific raids not being mentioned. The truth is doing content by content timeline updates is something that I've moved away from largely for a while, for years. I think it's because essentially, like, if I spend too much time talking about every single update, I simultaneously have to come up with why it's relevant. And why it's relevant in regards to the hypothesis of the actual video, right? Or the thesis, sorry. So for example, I have to be like, okay, there's a new raid in 2025 that came out last month. How is this relevant to the timeline story of how the game's not doing well? Well, let's look at it. Did the population go up? If the answer is no or barely, then it didn't affect anything, right? It's kind of like I said to people when New World was losing so much population, and I told people the game's already projected to start failing. And people were telling me, what are you basing that off of? Just math. And I'm not even good at it. But like literally downtrends, percentages, if percentage keeps hemorrhaging, population goes to 0. So for example, if population is at 900k, drops to 300k, and the next update only moves the population up to say 400k, maybe even 500k, how many of that 500K is going to stick around? Not all 500K. Most likely, because it's already been burning that amount of players, it's going to burn again. So it becomes a consistent burn and churn rate, where it's burning, burning, burning. The argument about Lost Ark is not that it eventually ran out of population. That was always going to happen. The argument is that it happened really, really fast for a game that cost 90 million. So I can't imagine that that was that good. I mean, the game made far less money than ArcAge, that's for sure. ArcAge was confirmed to make billions. I think Lost Ark probably made a lot of money, but I don't know if it was billions. I don't know. I don't know, though. If I had to make a projection, I would say they probably at least made triple back. So probably like 300 to 400 million. But ArcAge made a bill. So I don't know. Well, so that's the other interesting thing, Naz, is that, again, the people who are more likely to defend something in a comment section thinking that they're going to change something are more likely to be people that aren't actually super rational. But if you actually go to like Steam reviews, which people make fun of all the time, the Steam reviews actually call this stuff out. For example, look at the most recent Steam reviews. People of only 1 year ago were talking about massive infestations of bots. Some were saying it was like half of the amount of players, even just 1 year ago. When I read reviews from only a couple of months ago, because again, people think this is just my own personal like review of the game or whatever, it's like, guys, the reason that I call everybody detectives on the channel is because everybody helps me. I can't do this all by myself. How can I possibly understand culture as one person? You know what I'm saying? Like, imagine that, like, I understand the culture of people. Like, I just can't do that. I can offer my personal perspective, and that's perhaps valuable because I'm a massive nerd and I've been playing these games for a long time, and I alpha test and consult on many of these games. But maybe you just discard it for that reason. Cool. Well, there's other reasons that you can find value in it, right? Not just that. At least hopefully. But I love reading comments and reading reviews about games because they give me a perspective that I didn't ask for and that I'm not going to get like a very like curated view of it. So for example, if I read positive and negative reviews on Steam, they're pretty honest most of the time. Yes, there's memes and yes, there's people fucking around, but like most people there are talking about their experiences. And I read those. I like to read a couple dozen reviews even. Not just, you know, media critics, but like players. And try to see like how does the opinions match with each other? How do they differ? And then how does the opinion of like a regular player on Lost Ark differ from like a hardcore player? And yeah, I think that's the other thing is that people think they can attack someone's character or attack them directly, and that would then make it to where their game is better. In reality, if I'm obtaining my information from multiple sources by attacking me, and many of you are going to laugh because you figured this out already, you're attacking the player base that quit the game. Do you see how unproductive it is to do these brigaders that they do in my comment section sometimes on these games that aren't doing well, obviously? Is that you don't actually convince the player base that left or that isn't interested in the game like you are. In fact, my guess is that most of them, and you can chime in the comments, look at that type of stuff and think, whoa, my radar's going off. Why are they so defensive of this game? Right? And then you start to think, okay, well, it's because they play the game, obviously, right? And so it becomes more about them protecting the name of the game than caring if a person's literally telling them, I stopped playing the game. I can show you guys dozens of examples where I have posts where somebody will say, yeah, I stopped playing around this time. Like, it felt for me like da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Long, detailed posts, like 3 paragraphs. This Lost Ark video got a lot of big posts in it. I have to applaud everyone for that. But then you'll see a comment reply to it. And I swear to God, it is the most autistic cringe shit you'll see. Where the person's like, yeah, well, you're an idiot for thinking that way. What are you doing? Are you arguing people's experiences? Like, what are you doing? That's already weird. But let's say, like, your idea is to convince them. So by invalidating them and making them feel like shit and admitting to them that their issues weren't addressed and didn't matter, why would that make them want to play the game? Like, it's fucking insane, bro. Like, to see multiple posts like that where it's like fanboys attacking people who said they didn't like the game. What is the end game there? And that's why it's so funny seeing stuff like people say, like, the toxic Lost Ark fan base, the toxic Lost Ark fan base. And I kept being like, what are they talking about? I know. Now I know. Attacking people because they didn't like a game. How weird is that? Could you ever imagine being that way? Attacking somebody because they didn't like a game? For legit reasons they listed to you? Like, huh. Interesting. It's like whenever Final Fantasy XIV fans shit on people for not liking the leveling experience or the pre 2.0 story. It's like, you guys didn't like it either. Like, what the fuck? Like, nobody liked that shit. That shit was garbage. But it becomes like this, like, no, like, well, just buy a level boost then. And then they'll hit you with that. It's like, wait, so what is it? Does it suck? Or should I buy a level boost? Because I'm getting tugged into both directions here. Guild Wars 2 hits a new peak on Steam. That's not counting their launcher player base. This is not surprising for me. Guild Wars 2 has been steadily cooking ever since they blew their massive lead. And they have a pretty serviceable game. The mechanics are great. It's very responsive, especially compared to most MMOs, so... and online RPGs. Or core PGs. But... I'm surprised people are surprised by it, I guess. It's free to play. It doesn't have, like, any pay to win. It doesn't have, like, massive gear treadmills like the games we're talking about. It's fairly approachable. I'm not surprised by Guild Wars 2 having recent success, just like when people are surprised about old school RuneScape. And it was like, I saw a post recently, I talked to Card about this, it cracked me up. It was like a top rated post on MMORPG subreddit, and it read like, you know, all these games these days just like doing things these ways. Meanwhile, look at old school RuneScape blowing up. And I sat there and I was like, motherfucker, what did you just say? Just blowing up? Brother, do I have some news to tell you about RuneScape? Did you know the first game is like fucking 23 years old? Did you know there's like 5 versions of the game? And you're playing like the 5th version, which is actually like technically the newest one, even though it's old school RuneScape. But I know people could make the argument about RuneScape 3 because it's actually like newer age. But old school RuneScape's newer, right? So I don't fully understand what people mean by blowing up recently. Old school RuneScape and RuneScape in general was always a hit. Literally. I don't remember a time of the internet that RuneScape wasn't a hit. But maybe people are noticing it more actively because it's happening fast and it's happening in an age of drought. There's not a lot of online RPGs to play right now, so people look at it and they're just like, damn, look at this. Yeah, Mr. Zero Sins, I think that is because that's what these games were always about. I think people look at like Final Fantasy XIV and think that it was prescriptive. And it was, but not for the problem that you think it was. Final Fantasy's 14's, remedy was fixing the crappy story in online RPGs. Was building a more believable world of characters and story connections through a world and lore that already existed. Was bringing Final Fantasy to online RPGs. That's how Final Fantasy XIV succeeded. But then I guess people think like, okay, well, that's the path onwards. And it's just like, why is there only like 2 games that are designed this way? And like the 20 other games that tried failed. It's because this is like only for blockbuster online RPGs. This approach of like content expansion after content expansion, after new content update after new content update. It's not sustainable unless you're making tons of money. So games like old school RuneScape are far, far, far more sustainable. They don't require nearly as much overhead, and their new content isn't nearly as expensive. But I think in a sense, Mr. Zero Sins, and I know you're not necessarily the only one talking about this, but the difficulty of a lot of these discussions is that virtual worlds also involve social. They also involve psychology. They involve people, right? And so it's like, it's hard to make giant prescriptions of massive amounts of people, millions of people. The truth is that virtual worlds and online RPGs are for all types of people. The problem is that it's not actually like that in practice. And only so much of these games exist in limited fashions. So I hope that things continue to expand, because we don't need to get rid of WoW or Final Fantasy XIV to win or something. We just need more variety. We just need different shades of color. You know what I mean? So I'm okay with people being surprised by Guild Wars 2 and old school RuneScape, I guess. Because those are different colors. Those are different flavors. And I want everyone in the virtual world industry to be able to have different flavors. The only problem becomes when people who like particular flavors then try to prescribe that as a flavor that should be the only flavor. AKA WoW players and AKA Final Fantasy XIV players. That's because most of their player bases never played any other virtual world. So they don't really care about the other games. And that's not because like they're like malicious. No, they don't know. They're not connected to them. Maybe they could be, and maybe they'll learn about them. And maybe even Yoshi P could take them on another journey in another game. But you see what I'm saying? Like, most of those players, they only care about the game that they're playing. So it's like, I was hearing someone talk about Asmongold's chat, and I was just like, look, while I think that Asmongold's actually pretty intelligent regarding virtual worlds compared to most especially, I've read his chat, and his chat is... These are like bottom of the barrel WoW players. And again, that's not a hit on WoW players. I played WoW on private servers. My point is that if you've only ever played one virtual world, your opinion as prescriptive or prescriptions is kind of useless. What does that mean? It means this. I'll give you guys perfect examples. I don't really watch a lot of shonen anime. I'm just gonna be dead honest. It's just not really for me most of the time. And I'm working on it, even if it's like serious. Sometimes I try to get into stuff like, you know, I want to watch Naruto someday, but like, the only one I've really watched is like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. What I'm talking about is like, now imagine I started speaking for all of shonen anime and all of like, you know, power gain anime. just because I only watched DBZ. The truth is maybe I would have some good opinions, right? Some of them. How many of them, though? What are the chances that I would have novel opinions if I've never seen these other things? It would be kind of very low. So it's possible. I've met people like this, guys, who only play one game, and I hear their insight about other games, and I'm just like, what the fuck? You're a genius. But you've been locked in a lab grinding in this game somewhere, like, so it's possible. But how many times in my life has that happened? Like, one? 11 times? Sorry for the troll. Well, I watched One Piece. I don't consider it shonen, though, and I know I'm gonna get hate, but I'm not trying to speak in any type of expertise in any way, shape, or form, okay? MMO nerd taking off the nerddom, or the nerd cap. One Piece is more of a comedy for me. I think it's fucking hilarious. And I don't take it serious at all. Like, I know there's serious moments in it, but most of that stuff for me, it's kind of like water off a duck's back. It doesn't really hit with me that much. That's a contrast to like things like Inuyasha, which is the classical shonen anime. But the emotional scenes meant a lot more to me in that one. So maybe I'm just not far enough into One Piece. I'm only like 250 episodes in. I know I'm so fucking far behind, but before people jump on me, guys, I'm on episode 1160 in fucking Conan, okay? Or 1116 or 1160. I don't remember, but I'm literally as caught up as you can possibly be on the second, depending on what time period they were rated at, or first, biggest manga ever. It's One Piece and Detective Conan. I don't know if you guys knew that. Like, it's those two back to back. They're the longest running shows. Like, they've been running since like the 90s. Like, which is insane. I think, well, the first One Piece maybe might not be that old, but Detective Conan was showing in like 99. It's old as fuck. Watch the, so... Sorry, I have like a hangnail. Shit hurts like a bitch. When you train, your nails break a lot. Like, I don't know if you can tell. This nail is like all kinds of broken. That's from punching and grabbing things, and this one too. It's all messed up on the side. Well, this is the one that I was talking about. You see the hangnail? Ow. I think Conan is older. The reason why I was like pussyfooting around it is I think that they are slower. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly, Max Justice. That's the perfect way to put it. I don't take WWE or wrestling serious at all. One Piece to me is literally like the same thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's just like funny fighting. Like, and that's not me insulting it. I think One Piece is actually funny as fuck. Like, I like the show. But I don't take it like serious. I'm not like, oh wow, ooh, yeah. So just, you know, that was my point of being like, that's like the WoW fan trying to speak for all virtual world gamers. It's like a One Piece fan or a Naruto fan, or like me, the DBZ fan, trying to speak for everybody. I'm not qualified. I only watched like 2 shonen animes, maybe 3, including Inuyasha. And I don't know anything about them. I don't even know the tropes. So yeah, you kind of see my point. I think Asmon actually tries to engage with other virtual worlds himself. That's something that he actually didn't used to do. I don't know if people knew that, but the old Asmongold would literally like meme and make fun of other online games and never played them. Since then, a couple years later, he's played at least like 3 or 4 of them, including Lost Ark. So, yeah, I'm not like you know, Asmongold's homie. He's watched my content before and all, but I think he knows what he's talking about regarding virtual worlds compared to most. But still, I think that if you're going there for virtual world knowledge, I'm just going to question you just a little bit, because like while he's definitely like knowledgeable, I feel like he's more focused on being entertaining and like political and stuff like that. Whereas like if you want to just talk to somebody who's knowledgeable about virtual worlds, who's probably not going to meme or be mean to you, just talk to like Josh Strife Hayes. Like Josh is like such a nice guy and charismatic as fuck. So like just if you want to hear somebody like make you fall in love with like these types of games, who's not gonna like talk about things in a super like doesn't have a life nerdy way like me, I guess, go watch Lazy Peon. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's other content creators to watch in the virtual world space. There's not a lot of them, but there's some. And I feel like we all offer different perspectives. Like with people like Fever, they're a lot more serious. Staparu's like Eastern centric. Josh Strife Hayes is like worst MMO, but like kind of like investigative in a sense, and more communicative, more community based, I feel like, than mine. And then I'm more of like postmortems and why things failed, you know, business wise, and what were players' biggest issues and stuff like that, and why things were significant is also important to me. So I feel like Josh Strife Hayes and my series are actually like companion series. Somebody mentioned this to me a year ago or so, and I actually agree with them. That you watch my series, then you go watch his. Because then you can see what it's like to go back to that game. And is it still like, you know, fucking good or dumb or like... So, you know, it's kind of cool. And then actually you could watch Lazy Peon first, because he does impressions, and then does reviews. Then watch me for the postmortems, and then watch Josh for like the revisiting the postmortem. Like, I mean, I never thought about it that way, but that's kind of cool. All my homies hate hangnails. What's your opinion on Zergs for open world games and combat? Good question. And for people who know me, you already know what my answer is. Friendly fire. Even if it's reduced. I just think that everyone keeps trying to solve the problem, and it's just the problem staring you right in the fucking face. How does Mordhau? How does Chivalry? How does military sims and military games like Squad? How do all these games handle that stuff? They just let you kill each other. And then people are way more careful. That's just it. And that pisses people off. They don't like to hear that, but it's just true. If you want more cautious tactical combat, let people get killed by their teammates. And also make death actually matter. And yeah, you'll have a lot more strategical and tactical combats, just like in Squad. That's not for everybody, though. So there's like give and take, and would be great to see a video about Granado Espada. Well, for sure. I definitely will cover it. Just off a name alone. But also because, isn't that, what's his name's game? The guy that did Ragnarok Online? Something Kim? Kim Soo... Fuck, I can't remember. The more I start guessing, the more racist it'll seem. Yeah, in regards to that kind of stuff, factions have to actually have, like, significance to them. It's why Guild Wars 2's system is so boring to me. It's like they took their SPVP system, and then we're just like, oh yeah, let's make this a world versus world system. And that was fun to a lot of people, because people like theme parks, but sadly, I think that's boring as fuck. Like, it's essentially a giant arena. And, who cares? It's almost worse than Planet Side in a sense, right? But the other thing that counters Zerg gameplay and Zerg team swapping is making people care about the factions. Look at the Secret World. Did everybody complain about Zerging in the Secret World? I was there. Honestly, not really. Maybe on some servers. But I think generally speaking, we kind of treated it like, hey, we're unique. So we don't need to swap factions or whatever. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm not saying that maybe One Piece can't ever get emotional for me, but it's just like I've already watched like so many emotional scenes, and none of them do anything for me. It's just too goofy for me. That's my problem with if you make something too goofy, is it's hard to take it seriously. That's always how I felt about One Piece. The difference is now I actually just think it's funny, so I just accept it. When I was a kid, I was the opposite. I was like autistically fighting against it, like, why is it not more serious? Why does it not make more sense? Why does it not... You know, like asking all these dumb questions that nobody cares about. I've watched my friends watch One Piece. They don't care that it doesn't, you know, make sense that this person can do this, or, you know what I'm saying? Like... I'm surprised that the only person that showed up to talk about Lost Ark that wasn't from our community was essentially the one guy that was started making jokes about me being in maintenance mode. That's what it devolved to. Well, Lost Ark, can't say I'm surprised. That was the bravest soldiers, but kind of sucks. I like the shit talking. I actually think it's funny. Something else that seems to really, really surprise people. It's like when I play games with my cousin all the time. It cracks me up because I'll be in chat and I'm just like giggling like incessantly like a child about saying or doing something stupid. Like, for example, yesterday we were playing ARAM in League, and I was playing Zillion, and my cousin was playing Nunu. He went full AP, and I just kept buffing him the whole time. So I would speed buff him. He would get his like snowball and just crash into people, and he like started insta killing people because he got so strong, and that shit was so fucking funny to me, and I was laughing, and I remembered something someone said in another game of League to me. They said, wow, you sound just like an angry person. You can't even enjoy yourself. Because I said like that was easy or something like that. And in that moment, I was giggling, and I remember my cousin was just like, didn't say anything, and I was like, man, it's always weird when you get psychoanalyzed online by strangers based on sentences. It's like even just think about it for a second. Have you guys never competed in anything, like even just physical sports? I've competed in a few myself, and what I found is that niceness is generally what you get, but in competition it's actually not required. Like, nobody's like overly focused on trying to be nice when they're competing. That's why shit talk, trash talk, and other things like that end up becoming so popular, because you're literally competing to win for something. The other person doesn't want you to win. So like the most famous rivalries in all of basketball history, for example, come from two teams talking shit to each other. And it's funny, current basketball returned to that. Now current basketball is even more spicy than it was before. And people are in love with the NBA right now. It's trending like crazy. And even just amongst my friends. And I think that what people are realizing is that the WWE is still around. They've been around forever. And this pro wrestling and this whole like show of making competition also a show, it's entertaining to people, right? So this podcast, like if we sit here and we argue back and forth, or we make fun of a game, or we make fun of me, or whatever, we've done all three of those. That's entertainment, guys. It's not that serious, right? But when you start making prescriptions about people based on stuff like that, it's serious, but it's more serious about like, are you okay, buddy? Because I love a lot of YouTubers, and I sometimes even post comments. I never psychoanalyze people online. Maybe because I went to therapy a few times. Thank God. But yeah, after I started going to therapy, my inclination and desire to psychoanalyze people dropped to like 0. So maybe that's another wrinkle I haven't considered yet, is the people still stuck in that psychoanalyze phase online. You need therapy. Because there's nothing wrong about being introspective, or even analyzing other people. But people you don't know, after a while, kinda gets a little bit weird. But I know, more nerd talking about parasocial stuff weirding him out. What else is new? I'll give you another example. The Taylor Swift marriage stuff. Everyone's posting about it. I could not imagine a worse outcome in my life for myself. Like, I would not want the world wishing me well. Because the world doesn't fucking know me. Even if I was fucking Taylor Swift, okay, you like my music. What on earth do you know about me? Say hi to me, and then congratulate me on my marriage. But it's just like, that's what the world is, you know? Congratulations! These people got married. It's like, alrighty. I am actually excited for Doombots in League. Spot on. So, I'm gonna anger a lot of Bleach fans, but fuck it. We're here. And we're about to leave the stream anyway, so let's do it. Bleach is a worse version of Yu Yu Hakusho. Change my mind. Bleach is a worse version of Yu Yu Hakusho. It has worse music. It has a worse plot. I think the concept is worse. There's no humor in it, to me. I never found it funny at all, literally. So yeah, I know back when Bleach was super popular, I used to have the same opinion and people used to hate me for it. But for people thinking that I'm memeing, watch the beginning of both of these series, or even just read the mangas. They are the same fucking idea. They are the literal same fucking idea, okay? And does anybody know which one came next? It's obviously Bleach, okay? Bleach came after Yu Yu Hakusho. Yu Yu Hakusho was like one of the first like major hits in Western anime. In fact, amongst my friends who are of the colored variety, because as you probably know, I come from a mixed race neighborhood, and despite being whiter than fucking white, I'm mixed race myself. I had friends that were Indian, Mexican, black, mainly Mexican, in my neighborhood. They fucking loved Yu Yu Hakusho. It's considered like a cultural thing for them. So Bleach became naturally also a big thing in my neighborhood as well. I just could never get into it. I just couldn't. And when I would try to tell people, hey, look at the plot of Bleach and Yu Yu Hakusho, they would just like, yeah, whatever. They would just like dismiss me, and I was like, but yeah, so to describe which anime am I describing? Ah, true, Mr. Zero Sense. But okay, which anime am I describing? In this shonen anime, there is a particular character who comes upon a power in a very strange and out of the ordinary fashion. After discovering this power, they realize they have to use this power for good because of all this bad stuff that starts to happen that kind of ends up getting entangled into their life. On top of that, they meet a couple other friends who also have kind of similar like views and ideas, but they also meet kind of some villains that want the opposite. They want to open up the confines of the spirits and get rid of punishments and okay, which one did I just describe? You know what I'm saying? It's like, which one did I describe? Was that Yu Yu Hakusho? Or was that Bleach? I mean... No, the point that people make with shonen anime is that power scaling works like this. You get beat up, then you get stronger. I think that's an oversimplification. I get it. But I think that's an oversimplification. And Yu Yu Hakusho, the beginning of the plot is literally the fucking same. I was watching Bleach with my cousin, and I'm just like, bruh, does anyone not see this? It's kind of like the same plot. But I know the powers are different. And, let's be honest, the whole 3 ninjas or 3 samurai fucking arc in Yu Yu Hakusho sucks cheeks. And that's like the last or second to last season. So it like runs for fucking forever. That whole kings with the 3 king, what do they used to call that shit? They could remove that whole segment from Yu Yu Hakusho and it would still be dope. You know what I mean? Whereas like doesn't Bleach have like way more filler? I don't know. I'm just asking. Like I described Shaman King. Hey, what's up, Kyler? I don't know if I said hi to you. Maybe it was the Demon Kings. It was after this. I think it was in between the 2 tournament arcs. Or it might have been after the second tournament arc. I can't remember, but it was like he had to go like fight these different bosses, and it was just like, oh my god, they like dragged the hell out of that shit, and it just was not. I mean, let's be honest, Yu Yu Hakusho is just like a tournament anime. Like, it's more of a local anime. You know what I'm saying? Like, Hunter x Hunter, they're fucking running around the fucking country and shit. One Piece, they're fucking trekking around the world. Yu Yu Hakusho wasn't like that. It was like a local anime. It was like in just one hood. Yeah. I like that about it. I don't know about Bleach, though, in that regard. Like I said, as much as I'm memeing about Bleach, I don't actually know shit about Bleach. Most people who know me know that I meme the most when I don't know shit about something. Because I don't like it. Which is fair. But somebody mentioned Hunter x Hunter. I actually thought the whole, like, Hunter... Maybe you guys can give me some insight. Don't spoil it, but, like... The whole, like, Hunter test shit was kind of dope. And then right after that, it got super lame for me. Does it go back to arcs like that? Me too, Big Z. That's the thing. That's why I always shit on Bleach, is that I think Kuwabara is one of the coolest characters in anime. Anybody that I fucking know, I'm not exaggerating, was a Kuwabara hater, became a Kuwabara lover. Like, he's the prototypical character in anime, in my opinion, he's the better version of Titus. In fact, that's remember we talked about the Zero Sins. Ironically, the argument that I made is that if they made Titus more like Kuwabara, people wouldn't have hated Titus in Final Fantasy X so much. But Titus is a lot more like lame. Let's just be honest. Kuwabara was cool. That's literally the difference between these characters. You know what I'm saying? It's like Titus was lame, even though he was supposed to be cool. But Kuwabara was actually the cool kid in school. So like, and so was Yusuke, obviously. But like, Yusuke. But yeah, like Kuwabara is like one of those characters that actually has like a full-on like growth arc, and then becomes the character that you root for. And before people say, yeah, but shonen anime has that all the time. Okay, I'm not familiar with Naruto, so I don't know. I don't know Bleach that well, I admit. But I'm actually going to push back using DBZ as an example. I think DBZ, as much as we give it love for its side characters, is fucking horrible at power scaling. That's why I tried to fix it lately. I'm losing all the viewers because I'm talking about anime. Sorry, guys. But anyway. What anime was I mentioning? Fuck, I forgot. Oh, no, you said Naruto. What did I mention? Bleach. What was the other one that I mentioned? Maybe I could give Hunter x Hunter more of a try. Excuse me. I like Criollo. And I like some of the villains in Hunter x Hunter. They look cool and they're just impactful. Same, Big Z. That's fuck. That's fucked up. That's fucked up. Oh fuck. That's so true. I don't remember shit about Inuyasha either, except the characters and their powers. Wind tunnel. Wind scar. Lots of wind. And of course the Shomaru. I forgot his sword name. I'm not gonna lie, like, I never thought I was gay. But if there was one guy character who kind of trapped me, and by trap I mean that they are fairly feminine looking. Hey look, I'm admitting it. You guys can record this clip, okay? Use it as ammo. No, I'm just kidding. I don't fucking care. So Shomaru was the only, character I think growing up I was kind of like, alright, bro. I think if I was gay, I'd like guys that look like elf boys. Cause I ain't gonna lie, man. So Shomaru was the shit, man. That dude was hot as fuck. I mean, y'all seen his drip, bruh? Watch, I'll pull him up right now. So Shomaru was fucking dripped out. I mean, Inuyasha had so much fan service, but people never recognized that fan service worked both ways, okay? Look at how well drawn this character is. Not even just talking about like how hot the character is, but just like super well drawn, like such a cool, expressive character. Everything meant something. Monster claws, his armor, his two swords, the different color ribbon, one in which is tied by the girl on him, his fucking wolf-like thingy, spirit wolf thing, like, yeah, man. That was my thing. But that's why it cracked me up when I started, like, actually, like, talking to women in real life, and I would ask them, what type of guy are you interested in? When they would tell me that they weren't interested in people like Shishomaru, I was surprised for many years. And the funny thing is I'm joking, but I'm not. That I used to actually be confused. I'm like, what? Girls don't look at this and they're like, damn, he's so hot. And I'm just like, huh. Am I gay? Nah, but that could also be people just not interested in that type of aesthetic. Because I think you can argue that Sesshomaru is pretty, but they're not feminine. Right? Like, they're not really shown as a feminine character. They're just hot, basically. Everyone was gay in Inuyasha. Honestly, I mean, kind of true. I'm not gonna lie though, the whole Rin and Sesshomaru shit. I'm taking my hands off that one, bro. That's all I'm gonna say. If you know, you know. Okay. So I ain't gonna speak about them. Yeah, those two. All right, y'all want to see why Sesshomaru was not actually gay?
Magnificent! We'll cross swords again on Horai Island.
Explain yourself.
You bear the mark of the 4 war gods. As long as you do, your fate rests in our hands.
So for context, he encounters somebody and the person's like, we're like, they try to do the whole Q thing, like, we're somebody special, like, you should respect us. Immediately, Sesshomaru is just like, Dragon Strike, and just like fucking attacks him. And then the guy's like, very impressive. Well, let me see if I can find a different one.
And who are you?
I was about to ask you that.
You try to kill me and you don't even know me? And who are you?
I was about to ask you that.
You try to kill me and you don't even know me?
True. The classic monster scream. My PTSD remembers it.
Sesshomaru? You've been driving away these demons all this time?
That wound.
So, maybe someone can remind me on the lore of this, but as far as I understand, Sesshomaru is related to Inuyasha, right? They're both wolf spawn, correct? Or are they not related and they're just enemies? Because of, like, blood or something. Does anybody remember? Because I'm trying to make a connection. Because I wanted to explain the scene a little bit, but I'm trying to remember. I'm like, is this right? Like, yeah. He's his older brother. That's what I remember too. Okay, so basically, the reason that this scene is very, like, important is their relationships are kind of step. Their relationship is very strange. The relationships in Inuyasha are actually kind of strange in general, I should say, but okay. The show is about a warrior, a female warrior, who's actually like a godly archer who slays a demon. Except she doesn't slay him. She paralyzes him. And that ends up being not Kagome, what's her name? Kagome is the reincarnation. What was the other chick's name? You guys know what I'm talking about. Somebody will correct me in chat. But basically, she ends up kind of like disappearing, and people don't know why. And so what starts to happen is the charm that was placed over the city starts to fade away. That means monsters start to come out and attack people again. Because she was their guardian, and she's not there anymore. Well, the other thing is that we know that whoever it is that she actually like attacked, I'm trying not to spoil it on purpose, actually ended up waking up from his slumber. That's the main character, Inuyasha. So literally, Inuyasha is a really cool premise, even if it is kind of like a shitty show in some ways. It's a better manga, I should say, where it's like, it's really dark Japanese anime. So if you haven't seen stuff like that, it'll surprise you with how dark it gets. Like, if you've seen Berserk, you're good, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if you haven't, like, you're gonna be like, damn, this shit's dark. But so the whole, like, backstory, the Kikyo, thanks. The Spark Notes backstory is that basically Kikyo didn't die, but kind of died. Things are complicated, quote unquote. They leave it like that on purpose. But Inuyasha actually fell in love with Kikyo. So whenever he gets shot by her, it's a moment of betrayal. She did it because she felt like she didn't have a choice, but she also did it to save him, which you learn later on. So it's like there's a lot of big conflicting romantic aspects in this anime compared to most. What ends up happening is, over time, Inuyasha meets somebody named Kagome, who seems like a reincarnation. He doesn't fall in love with her, though. In fact, they hate each other, because it turns out that because she's the reincarnation of the other world mixing to the spirit world, she's now like the new guardian. So she has to take over as like the fucking guardian of the village and shit. That means that she now has power over Inuyasha. So that's where the whole "sit boy" comes from. I'm sure you've heard that before or seen the meme. That's because he is a wolf, and the joke is that he has to be obedient when she uses commands. And so she'll literally command him around like a dog. That doesn't last for long, only like a couple of episodes. And they bring it back every now and then. But what ends up happening is Inuyasha learns that he doesn't love Kikyo. And that she was kind of fucked up. Which is interesting. I didn't think they would go that way. But it realizes that Kagome is actually more of the pure-hearted version. And less corruptible. And so they start to develop a romance over time. And to be honest, I don't remember at the very end of it. Yes. Inuyasha has... Bro, if you watch the first 10 episodes of Inuyasha, you probably just discovered 20 new fetishes. I'm not kidding. It's very... It's not even because it's overly sexual. That's the funny part. It has sexual themes that are like thrown into there. Like tentacle monsters and fucking, you know, stuff like that. Like, but yeah, and so the whole concept between Sesshomaru and Inuyasha is they hate each other. Inuyasha is very, very, how do I say it in a nice way? Pungent. No, that's not nice. Arrogant. He has power, but he's very wild. That's kind of what got him in trouble in the first place. He hates his brother because he blames his brother. Like, why didn't you try to save me? You don't even give a fuck about me. Like, fuck you. I'm gonna kill you. Like, it's just like this, like, I hate you because you're my brother almost. You know what I mean? Whereas Sesshomaru just kind of... I'm not gonna pretend he's a good brother because he's not. Most of the time. But he does save Inuyasha a few times, never kills him, despite beating him, and saves Kagome as well a few times. And that's why I did all this explaining, was to say that, like, that's why this scene was so important, because it was, like, the first time that, like, Sesshomaru, like, decided to protect the reincarnation. Because he didn't like Kikyo. In fact, I'm pretty sure Kikyo whooped his ass as well. So he doesn't have, like, a good feeling about them. And to be fair, they literally killed his brother, so... I mean, you see why it's so fucking confusing? As, like, a manga? But that's why when people tell me, oh, Inuyasha's too, like, manga, or too Eastern, I can't blame them. The most popular animes are going to be the ones that are more westernized. And if not, more relatable. Like, for example, you guys are going to laugh, but Naruto was relatable where I'm from because of gangs. I know that's the most American thing and Mexican thing you guys have heard, but yeah, Naruto was big in my neighborhood because it was like gangs. You know what I'm saying? Like, people understood it very easily. Compared to, you know, Inuyasha's about romance and love and spirituality and curses and spells and things like that. If you like Japanese mythology, though, I recommend watching Inuyasha. I always recommend it for people that like Japanese mythology, because that's what Inuyasha is. It's less anime and more like Japanese mythology shonen. You know what I'm saying? Like, I might as well show you guys the scene before I go.
Sit, boy. Sit, boy.
No wonder why I started adopting female dom fantasies.
Considering all I have to do to make you obey is say the word sit. Whoops, sorry about that.
Oh, man.
Sit, boy.
Why, you...
What? That's her dressed as Kikyo. What the fuck?
What'd you do that for?
So out of context, it literally just seems like a sexual fantasy, and who knows, maybe the writer wrote it that way, because Inuyasha's writer is actually like a famous weird writer, kind of like Oda. But the context is that he's wearing a charm. This charm was given to him by Kikyo. Kikyo tricked him. It's a fucked up anime, bro. It's a fucked up anime. Like, Big Z could back me up on that. That charm is a choker, but it's a choker with magic. So she was his girl, but fucking cursed him to have to be obedient. Like, his thing. So don't blame Kagome. She just showed up and was like, who's this fucking crazy guy everybody's scared of? Wait, he listens to commands? And just started. Yes, that's kind of weird, but like you said, I'm saying it's like a different context. It's more innocent for her. Kikyo was fucking weird, bro. Yeah, there's some female dom fantasy shit going on there too, bro. I don't know about all that. Cause yeah, think about that. It's not a spell placed on him. It was a charm placed with a spell in it. So meaning he was literally tricked by social engineering. It's even more fucked up. But anyway, I had to explain how fucked up Inuyasha is. I love it for all of its warts, but it's a fucking weird one, man. Yep. Tentacles like are in like the first or third episode, I think. Whenever she first comes into the, so for people wondering, Shinto is like an old religion and theology and culture that existed in Japan and other parts of Asia. It's actually not the same as Zen or same as Buddhism. Zen Buddhism was like the warrior-like Buddhism. Shinto was like, so early Japanese society was actually fairly female-centric. Their first, actually, someone mentioned Shaman King. Ironically, the first Shaman King of Japan was a female. So Japan has this very female history that then turned to Zen Buddhism, that then became samurais, and you guys know the rest. Imperialism. But the point that I'm making, yeah, man, Lost Ark was garbage too. I love the callback Nas. That was funny as fuck. Well, that's the thing, Big Z, is that Inuyasha complains about it, but he's also kind of like, so maybe that's why he put it on. Maybe he consented. Fuck. I don't talk about anime much, guys, so I'm nerding out a bit because, you know, I don't get that experience. But yeah, no. Going back to what I was going to say about Shintoism. Shintoism is almost like this belief that like spirits exist in the world, right? Like pantheism in a sense. Like the force, right? Where it's like something exists in this paper. Something exists in this cap, right? That's oversimplification, but like that's how they viewed it. They viewed it like there was power in everything. And so Shintoism was great because it created a lot of beautiful aspects of Japanese culture. But sadly, it was kind of like the quieter culture. But a cool part of Shintoism, when I say quieter, I mean that it got drowned out. But a part of Shinto culture was mythology. Their mythology was the crazy faces that you see put on the samurai masks, was the big monsters, was the demons, was the tidal waves that have, you know, like lifelike qualities. Japanese mythology was like turning everything real into like even bigger monsters. So Inuyasha really is like she has to cross into a temple to get to the spirit world, which is super Shinto-y. So I'm fanboying out because not many animes exist like that, but I think someone mentioned an anime called Shaman King. So maybe I should go check that one out. Can someone actually, before I leave today, excuse me, can somebody sell me? Yeah, I'm actually gonna allegedly smoke while I wait for my food. And I want you guys to sell me on this. Sell me on Shaman King. And for people wondering, wow, you sound so entitled, don't worry, guys. You don't have to be offended for other people. This is what nerds do for fun. We just recommend things we like. You think the anime is good? But like, when someone mentioned it, was it because you feel like it's related to Inuyasha? It reminds you of it? Like, why did you mention it? Like, honest question. Similar plots, maybe? I don't know shit about Shaman King, so I'm being dead ass. I'm still a fan even though I was salty. Hate to see you with some other bro, I know you happy. Hate to see you happy if I'm not the one driving. That Kill Bill song stuck in my head. Oh, you only watch like 5 animes in total? Yeah, I'm like the same way. That's why I don't tell people I'm an anime fan. I know that sounds so fucking edgy, but I'm not trying to be edgy. I just literally tell people I'm not an anime fan because they'll be like, oh, you're an anime fan? Have you watched the Draman King's, you know, fucking Titans, whatever the fuck? And I'm just like, no. I haven't. And I probably won't, my dude. I'm not gonna lie to you. But, if y'all have good recs, I'll check them out. Even though you guys never check out Detective Conan, despite me always recommending it. Sad. No, I'm just kidding. But, if you're wondering how that feels as a mystery fan, it's normal. Nobody gives a fuck about mystery these days. And even if they did, mystery anime is like lower on the list. You know what I'm saying? Like, wow, I've never heard that before. That's interesting. A manga being worse than the anime. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm just saying it's different. A manly anime. I've seen parts about Fist of the North Star. Sell me on that. Ah, I like that, Madness. Anime fan of an anime. Yeah, I like that. I can relate. Because I just struggle to tell people I'm a anime fan when it's just like, I've been in rooms with people who can just like put on random animes and watch them together and find enjoyment doing that. And I am not that person. That's not fun to me. I don't want to sit there and watch a random anime. But I think part of my problem is like anime for me is like more mature cartoons. So if it ends up being a little bit too kiddie-like, I lose that joy. Does that make sense? Post-apocalyptic kung fu. Interesting. I think I've ever heard those words used together. But I like it. I don't like my back cracking like crazy, though. You recommend 12 Kingdoms? Alright, let me write these down, actually, before I fucking dip. Well, first let me take this hit in a video game. Oh yeah, I'm a little bit bigger right now. Can you guys see? I'm so fucking white, you can't even see my muscle. Can anybody else relate? That's how I feel, Naz. And you seem like you kind of have a similar interest to me. Because I actually like a lot of sports fiction and comedy fiction as well. Which sports shows do you recommend though? Because at the moment, I'm not into any really. But they cover soccer a lot, or football a lot in Detective Conan. It's like a reoccurring theme. It's always handled really well. I'm not gonna lie, like every time there's a soccer episode, I'm always like, fuck yeah, this is gonna be dope. And that's funny because anyone who knows me knows I literally think fucking football, aka soccer, is the most boring sport ever. And before you ask me, yes, I'm Mexican American. Yes, I'm from the South. And yes, I currently live in Mexico. So I know I should like soccer, but I don't. Sorry. It's boring as fuck. Real by Takehiko and Inoue. Slam Dunk creator. Let me write these down. Wait, does anybody have an anime list? The anime list lets you save animes, right? I need to make one. That's what I'll do next stream. 12 Kingdoms. Fist of the North Star. I think there was one more someone said. Oh, Elron, you're really right about the Hunter x Hunter great power explanations. You'd like RDC World, one of the streamers slash content creators that I watch, who are like probably some of the biggest voices in black anime, like entertainment. Like, I think they really helped popularize, like, you know, like mainstream anime in black communities, even, I would go as far to say. And they've mentioned Hunter x Hunter a lot for having good power explanations. So I take that seriously. I need to go check it out. And maybe give it some more time. I think my issue is that if I'm not bought into the characters as much, I struggle. And you guys maybe know which episode I'm on, but I got to the point to where everybody started splitting up. Like Homeboy with the briefcase was like splitting up with like the, I think it's a guy or a girl. It's kind of like a gender bender character with the swords and shit. Y'all gonna laugh at my explanations. And then fuck, what was the other one? And then the, you know, like the green dude with his like, you know, kind of crazy like horror like little boyfriend. They're just kind of like fucking people up in like some like place to make money. And then they went and started getting trained by like someone crazy. And they were doing like a training arc and shit. And yeah, like as soon as they split up, I instantly lost interest. Maybe you guys could explain why, or maybe what do you guys think? Why? Like, why did I? Yeah, I used to have an anime list page too, but I don't remember my login info, but I bet you I could find it. Yeah, my issue with it, with football, is that I'm just used to sports, like, that are more about single exciting moments. And I think that football has less of that. And simultaneously, I'd argue that it doesn't respect your time that well, kind of like baseball has that same problem, which I don't like. But yeah, no real serious reasons, just nonsense. Good thing about Gachiakuta. Looks scary as fuck. The style looks interesting though. Alright. Alrighty, y'all. What leagues do I watch? I don't watch shit. I don't watch anything at all. For sports, the only thing I watch these days is like if I'm out or if I'm with friends and a sport that I like is on. So for example, American football or basketball are probably the only ball sports I like, if I'm being honest. And then, as obviously everyone knows, I spend most, if not all of my time, if any time, because it's not much, watching MMA, martial arts, jiu-jitsu, striking, stuff like that. So for me, that's a lot more exciting than ball sports, personally. So. No, we were. But I was saying that I hate it. That's why you were asking me what leagues. I was like, there is no leagues, brother. I don't even watch that shit. But I think I know what you're trying to argue or trying to say. You're trying to say like that like American soccer like sucks. But I live in Mexico. La Liga's pretty like fun to watch from what I hear. But I know that like the most competitive league is like Champions League or whatever, or Champions Cup or whatever the fuck it's called. Yeah, I watch one. I watch honestly any MMA. Like, as long as it's not like Tough Enough or like Bully Beatdown or whatever the fuck. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's like the gimmicky stuff, like the TikTok stuff, I don't watch any of that. For example, like Creator Clash, I think is fucking so stupid. Like, why would these creators willingly want to go get brain damage just for fun? Like, you might say, yeah, but they want to like fight and they want to like. You're not really fighting. You're whatever it is that you're doing. It's not. It's barely fighting, okay? And after just like a couple months of training, when you're somebody like me who's, you know, trained martial arts and trains martial arts and watches fighting, it's just not exciting to me. So yeah, the only kind of fighting I watch is just like pro fighting. I'll go to an amateur show if I'm like local to it, obviously. But yeah, I like, you know, I watch pro leagues like One, PFL, UFC. What's the other one called? Glory, which is kickboxing. Top Rank, which is boxing. Matchroom boxing. Trying to think what else. What other promotions? Oh, Dream. There's a couple Japanese promotions too. Yeah, that's it. One is not. I wouldn't even necessarily call one low level as much as it's like they organize a lot of squash matches on purpose. You know, like the purpose of that league, in a sense, is to try to have more like almost like pro wrestling aspects come through with the fighting, which is actually like a good idea for entertainment. Sora no Shimino. I don't know shit about Japanese, sorry. I can kind of flub Korean pronunciation, but what you find is that if you're a Westerner trying to learn like Korean, your Japanese sucks. It's like even worse. Because I'm not trying to learn, you know what I'm saying? Like any of the types of like speech. So I just like Koreanify everything. Yeah, I don't know if this Sora no Toshimino is for me. It looks like this looks like, it's funny because this is like a booby anime, but I've watched girls watch animes like this, and this looks like one of those animes. But yeah, I don't know if that was for me, boys. The funnest anime to me is Great Teacher Onizuka. It's like it was a sleeper hit. When I was first watching it, I was like, what the fuck did I get myself into? And then I was like, wait a minute. What is this? This is kind of cool. Hey, my hair's starting to curl because I cut my hair. And when I cut my hair too much, I lose the curls in it. But alright, y'all. Let's end the stream there. Thanks for stopping by and checking out the 6 Pixels Under podcast. Thanks for saying hello to me. Thanks for stopping by and enjoying the show. If you did, whether it was the shit talk, whether it was the shit posting, the memeing, the talking about tentacles, or just talking about the fact that I spent way too much time playing online RPGs. Hopefully you enjoyed some of it. And if not, maybe you'll enjoy the next stream. And if not, maybe you'll enjoy the next episode of Death of a Game on Splitgate 1 and 2. And if not, I'm sorry. I don't think you like my content, and that's totally cool. I don't hate you, and you don't hate me. No, I'm just kidding. But thanks for the anime Rex. Thanks for stopping by. I will see you guys later. Peace.